Happy bedtime, and welcome back to Sketch McHugh Reads to You. If you think Professor Dad Joke's Bedtime Stories or Old Man McQuinner's Story Time would be better names, please say so in the comments. And with that, she dared the bravest thing she'd ever done. She looked right into his eyes. He closed the door in her face. Without a word. Without a word. Buttercup ran. She whirled and burst away, and the tears came bitterly. She could not see. She stumbled. She slammed into a tree trunk, fell, rose, ran on. Her shoulder throbbed from where the tree trunk hit her. And the pain was strong, but not enough to ease her shattered heart. Back to her room she fled, back to her pillow. Safe behind the locked door, she drenched the world with tears. Not even one word. He hadn't had the decency for that. Sorry, he could have said. Would it have ruined him to say sorry? Too late, he could have said. Why couldn't he have at least said something? Buttercup thought very hard about that for a moment, and suddenly she had the answer. He didn't talk, because the minute he opened his mouth, that was it. Sure, he was handsome, but dumb. The minute he had exercised his tongue, it would have all been over. Duh! That's what he would have said. That was the kind of thing Wesley came out with when he was feeling really sharp. Duh! Thanks, Buttercup. Buttercup dried her tears and began to smile. She took a deep breath, heaved a sigh. It was all part of growing up. You got these little quick passions. You blinked, and they were gone. You forgave faults, found perfection, fell madly. Then the next day the sun came up, and it was over. Chalk it up to experience, old girl, and get on with the morning. Buttercup stood, made her bed, changed her clothes, combed her hair, smiled, and burst out again in a fit of weeping, because there was a limit to just how much you could lie to yourself. Wesley wasn't stupid. Oh, she could pretend he was. She could laugh about his difficulties with the language. She could chide herself for her silly infatuation with a dullard. The truth was simply this. He had a head on his shoulders, with a brain inside every bit as good as his teeth. There was a reason he hadn't spoken, and it had nothing to do with gray cells working. He hadn't spoken because, really, there was nothing for him to say. He didn't love her back, and that was that. The tears that kept Buttercup company the remainder of the day were not at all like those that had blinded her into the tree trunk. Those were noisy and hot. They pulsed. These were silent and steady, and all they did was remind her that she wasn't good enough. She was 17, and every male she'd ever known had crumbled at her feet, and it meant nothing. The one time it mattered, she wasn't good enough. All she knew really was writing, and how was that to interest a man when that man had been looked at by the Countess? It was dusk when she heard footsteps outside her door. Then a knock. Buttercup dried her eyes. Another knock. "Whoever is that?" Buttercup yawned finally. "Wesley." Buttercup lounged across the bed. "Wesley," she said. "Do I know any Oh, farm boy. It's you. How droll." She went to her door, unlocked it, and said in her fanciest tone, "I'm ever so glad you stopped by. I've been feeling just ever so slummy about the little joke I played on you this morning. Of course, you knew I wasn't for a moment serious, or at least I thought you knew. But then, just when you started closing the door, I thought for one dreary instant that perhaps I'd done my little jest a bit too convincingly, and, poor dear thing, you might have thought I meant what I said, when of course we both know the total impossibility of that ever happening. I've come to say goodbye." Buttercup's heart buckled, but she still held to Fancy. "You're going to sleep,
you mean, and you've come to say good night? How thoughtful of you, farm boy, showing me that you forgive me for my little morning's tease. I certainly appreciate your thoughtfulness, and—"
He cut her off. "I'm leaving."
"Leaving?"
The floor began to ripple. She held to the doorframe.
"Now?"
"Yes."
"Because of what I said this morning?"
"Yes."
"I frightened you away, didn't I? I could kill my tongue."
She shook her head and shook her head.
"Well, it's done. You've made your decision. Just remember this. I won't take you back when she's done with you. I don't care if you beg."
He just looked at her. Buttercup hurried on.
"Just because you're beautiful and perfect, it's made you conceited. You think people can't get tired of you. Well, you're wrong. They can, and she will. Besides, you're too poor."
"I'm going to America to seek my fortune." This was just after America, but long after fortunes. Wait a minute. If America existed, that means Americo Vespucci identified it, which would have been after 1492, pretty while long after 1492, when there was a Spain. Anyway, sorry, I don't know crap about European history, so this takes place in no time. Never mind. "I'm going to America to seek my fortune." This was just after America, but long after fortunes. "A ship sails soon from London. There is great opportunity in America. I'm going to take advantage of it. I've been training myself in my hovel. I've taught myself not to need sleep. A few hours only. I'll take a 10-hour-a-day job, and then I'll take another 10-hour-a-day job, and I'll save every penny from both except what I need to eat to keep strong. And when I have enough, I'll buy a farm and build a house and make a bed big enough for two."
"You're just crazy if you think she's going to be happy in some run-down farmhouse in America. Not with what she spends on clothes."
"Stop talking about the Countess as a special favor before you drive me mad." Buttercup looked at him. "Don't you understand anything that's going on?" Buttercup shook her head. Wesley shook his too.
"You never have been the brightest, I guess. Do you love me, Wesley? Is that it?"
He couldn't believe it. "Do I love you? My God, if your love were a grain of sand, mine would be a universe of beaches. If your love were—"
"I don't understand that first one yet,"
Buttercup interrupted. She was starting to get very excited now.
"Let me get this straight. Are you saying my love is the size of a grain of sand, and yours is this other thing? Images just confuse me so. Is this universal business of yours bigger than my sand? Help me, Wesley. I have the feeling we're on the verge of something just terribly important."
"I have stayed these years in my hovel because of you. I've taught myself languages because of you. I've made my body strong because I thought you might be pleased by a strong body. I've lived my life with only the prayer that some sudden dawn you might glance in my direction. I have not known a moment in years when the sight of you did not send my heart careening against my rib cage. I have not known a night when your visage did not accompany me to sleep. There has not been a morning when you did not flutter behind my waking eyelids. Is any of this getting through to you, Buttercup, or do you want me to go on for a while?"
"Never stop.
There has not been— If you're teasing me, Wesley, I'm just going to kill you." "How can you even dream I might be teasing?"
"Well, you haven't once said you loved me."
"That's all you need? Easy. I love you, okay? Want it louder? I love you. Spell it out, should I? I-L-O-V-E-Y-O-U. Want it backward? You love I.
You are teasing me now, aren't you?"
"A little, maybe. I've been saying it so long to you, you just wouldn't listen. Every time you said, 'Farm boy, do this,' you thought I was answering, as you wish, but that's only because you were hearing wrong. I love you was what it was, but you never heard, and you never heard."
"I hear you now, and I promise you this. I will never love anyone else, only Wesley, until I die."
He nodded, took a step away. "I'll send for you soon, believe me."
"Would my Wesley ever lie?"
He took another step. "I'm late. I must go. I hate it, but I must. The ship sails soon, and London is far."
"I understand."
He reached out with his right hand. Buttercup found it very hard to breathe. "Goodbye." She managed to raise her right hand to his.
They shook. "Goodbye," he said again. She made a little nod. He took a third step, not turning. She watched him. He turned, and the words ripped out of her, "Without one kiss!" They fell into each other's arms. Peter Falk voice. "There have been 5 great kisses since 1642 B.C., when Saul and Delilah Corn's inadvertent discovery swept across Western civilization. Before then, couples hooked thumbs, and the precise rating of kisses is a terribly difficult thing, often leading to great controversy, because although everyone agrees with the formula of affection times purity, times intensity, times duration, no one has ever been completely satisfied with how much weight each element should receive. But on any system, there are 5 that everyone agrees deserve full marks. Well, this one left them all behind." The first morning after Wesley's departure, Buttercup thought she was entitled to do nothing more than sit around moping and feeling sorry for herself. After all, the love of her life had fled. Life had no meaning. How could you face the future, etc., etc.? But after about 2 seconds of that, she realized that Wesley was out in the world now, getting nearer and nearer to London. And what if a beautiful city girl caught his fancy while she was just back here moldering? Or worse, what if he got to America and worked his jobs and built his farm and made their bed and sent for her, and when she got there he would look at her and say, "I'm sending you back. The moping has destroyed your eyes, the self-pity has taken your skin. You're a slobby-looking creature. I'm marrying an Indian girl who lives in a teepee nearby and is always in the peak of condition." Buttercup ran to her bedroom mirror. "Oh, Wesley," she said, "I must never disappoint you." Okay, yeah, this book, I love it, but it doesn't age well. So I think there are going to be some bits where I do the good parts version. Anyway, Buttercup ran to her bedroom mirror. "Oh, Wesley," she said, "I must never disappoint you." And she hurried downstairs to where her parents were squabbling, 16 to 13 and not past breakfast yet. "I need your advice," she interrupted. "What can I do to improve my personal appearance?" "Start by bathing," her father said, "and do something with your hair while you're at it." Her mother said, "Unearth the territory behind your ears. Neglect not your knees." "That will do nicely for starters," Buttercup said. She shook her head. "Gracious, but it isn't easy being tidy." Undaunted, she set to work. Every morning she awoke, if possible by dawn, and got the farm chores finished immediately. There was so much to be done now, with Wesley gone, and more than that, ever since the Count had visited, everyone in the area had increased his milk order, so there was no time for self-improvement until well into the afternoon. But then she really set to work. First, a good cold bath. Then, while her hair was drying, she would slave after fixing her figure faults. Again, my apologies. One of her elbows was just too bony, the opposite wrist not bony enough, and exercise what remained of her baby fat, little left now, she was nearly 18, and brush her hair. Her hair was the color of autumn, and it had never been cut, so 1,000 strokes took time, but she didn't mind, because Wesley had never seen it clean like this. And wouldn't he be surprised when she stepped off the boat in America? Her skin was the color of wintry cream, and she scrubbed her every inch well past glistening. And that wasn't much fun, really, but wouldn't Wesley be pleased with how clean she was as she stepped off the boat in America? And very quickly now, her potential began to be realized. From 20th, she jumped within 2 weeks to 15th, an unheard-of change in such a time. But 3 weeks after that, she was already 9th and moving. The competition was tremendous now, but the day after she was 9th, a 3-page letter arrived from Wesley in London, and just reading it over put her up to 8th. That was really what was doing it for her more than anything. Her love for Wesley would not stop growing, and people were dazzled when she delivered milk in the morning. Some people were only able to gape at her, but many talked, and those that did found her warmer and gentler than she had ever been before. Even the village girls would nod and smile now, and some of them would ask after Wesley,
which was a mistake unless you happened to have a lot of spare time, because when someone asked Buttercup how Wesley was, well, she told them. He was supreme as usual. He was spectacular. He was singularly fabulous. Oh, she could go on for hours. Sometimes it got a little tough for the listeners to maintain strict attention, but they did their best, since Buttercup loved him so completely. Which was why Wesley's death hit her the way it did. And we're going to end there today. Don't worry, he doesn't die. You've seen the movie. If you haven't seen the movie, I'll tell you now, spoilers, he didn't die. Thank you for joining us. Like, share, and subscribe. And let me know what you want me to read next. Please have a lovely night and rest well. Intro-outro music, Enchanted Road, composed and performed by Jonathan Segev. Available on SoundCloud and other platforms.